Holy citizens of the world, we all very well know that the influence of spiritual life of India is immense even today. The spiritual life inspires billions of people in search for peace, truth and emancipation. So let me take you back to more than 5,000 years where metaphysical issues, such as true nature of universe, God, soul as well as ways to realize the Supreme Lord and true self-knowledge were addressed. The most beautiful, powerful, epic as well as inspirational conversation between the Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna. The dialogue's emphasis and length about how man can live in the highest self without compromising to be active in the worldly life. Here we see Lord Krishna as a teacher answering Arjuna's questions beautifully in an integrated way by bringing in various elements of philosophical thoughts of that time which we call it divine knowledge. So you can say aesthetically it brings forth that all the different lands thoughts converging ultimately into one single and oneness of soul. And the Supreme. So let me introduce the epic characters between whom the conversation or dialogue transpires. Krishna. Here Krishna is the teacher and also the central character of the epic Mahabharata. The king of Dwarka and a leader of Yaduvashni clan. Here we can see him as a diplomat, advisor and an eloquent speaker. Krishna was an ideal friend, wise teacher and a far-seeing statesman for Pandavas. Krishna was considered a devout yogi and an invincible warrior. Krishna had an uncanny wisdom which garnered respect from one and all. In Mahabharata, when the conversation takes place, Krishna has been identified with the Supreme Lord. It establishes his supremacy as a manifestation of the divine. Krishna's blue-black complexion, attractive features, divine form and also bewitching smile spellbound the lookers. The divine music of Krishna's flute and the Rasleelas with gopis are symbolic to love, devotion and eternal romance between the soul and the sour. We all know the Krishna Leelas which are full of miracles, heroic acts and playful mischief during his childhood and teenage time. Krishna is also an incarnation of the Supreme Lord for emancipation of Mother Earth from demons and those who do evil. Now too is a time to introduce Arjuna or Arjuna. Arjuna is the pupil seeking knowledge through various questions posed to Sri Krishna during epic Mahabharata. Arjuna is one of the 5 Pandava brothers and very dear to Krishna. The political aspirations brought Kauravas and Pandavas face to face during final war in the epic battle of Kurukshetra. During Mahabharata, Sri Krishna chose to be a charioteer of Arjuna. Arjuna was a mighty warrior and a magnificent archer. When Arjuna saw his own cousins, teachers and elders in the battlefield, he became emotional and lost his confidence and zeal to fight Kauravas. He found it futile and useless to kill his own people just for the sake of material acquisitions. Arjuna put away his arms and decided not to fight. This is the turning point of Mahabharata when Krishna, his friend and advisor, provided him the eternal knowledge of Karma Yoga, true goal of the human soul and ways to know the Absolute. In the backdrop of a battlefield, for such divine knowledge is a very dramatic metaphor, because life itself is a battlefield for every soul. The soul needs to know the true nature of the Supreme and self to conquer this battle. Here Arjuna is representative of every human soul which seeks answers to its dilemmas and searches for true purpose of life. But here the distress and anxieties of life shakes its convictions and confuses it. When doubts, failures and utter despair engulfs the human mind as well as all doors seems closed, then it helplessly bursts and says, "What should I do now? Where should I go?" When you are in doubt, then this is the time you search for the divine source starts. Those who reach out to it find the peace and eternal bliss. Here Krishna, who is divine, tells Arjuna, who is the seeker, that divine dwells in every human entity. Krishna emphasizes that it is the inner light, the eternal witness which is imperishable and inextinguishable. It never decays and never dies. It is this true nature of soul that every human has to understand. Birth after birth, human efforts help the inner true self to grow and elevate to a higher spiritual level. Once it merges into the source, that is a time when final destiny of every living entity happens. Until it happens, it has to travel between endless births and deaths. We must note that individual soul is a portion and manifestation of God. There is nothing that never was and there is nothing that again won't be. When man forgets his true nature and purpose, he or she falsely identifies himself with human form as well as limitations. His doubts, dilemmas and mental agonies increases. This is a time when human consciousness gets clouded and really deludes him. At the same time, when he or she keeps senses in control and performs all actions, surrendering the action and the result to the Supreme without being attached or affected, the flame of Spree burns brighter and clear. We must note human life is mixture of necessity, freedom, chance and choice. Here the divine is emphasizing the individual's freedom of choice in the way in which he or she should exercise it. Krishna, while delivering the sermons, describes how the spiritual aspirant should abstain from overindulgence and sensual pleasures, sit in a comfortable place, devoid of distraction. The aspirant should regulate and concentrate on breathing, get his mind focused and detached from all desires for fruit of action. Once you attain unity with the divine, he automatically gets united with fellow beings, understanding their true nature to be the divine as well. Those who go by the words of entire Mahabharata and miss the real message of it, may think that Krishna is asking Arjuna to kill his own people and he is in favor of war as well as violence. Arjuna wants to retreat, but Krishna motivating him to fight. In actual terms, the question is not of war and violence, its favor or propagation. The actual that runs throughout the discourse is that man must live his full active life, perform his duties and actions, but his inner self must be peacefully anchored in divine. Treating pain, pleasure, gain, loss, victory and defeat alike, he must perform his duty in the red spree. One must understand his or her spiritual destiny, but being a social being, he or she must be active part of this world. A discussion over the question whether action is better or renunciation of action is better. It surely concludes that action is better. There should be renunciation of desire for fruit of action, not of action. Advocating detachment from desires, not giving up work. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, O Parth, I have no duty. There is nothing in the world that I have not gained and nothing that I have to. Yet I continue to work. The Lord emphasis non-action, non-performance or inertia must not be mistaken for spirituality. On the other hand, attachment to fruit of action or acting on false worldly premises also separates the soul from the source. Devote everything to the divine and act to please God alone. The Lord desires in every phase of action, man must see the infinite Brahman. Only he is the doer. He is the action and he is the result. Action frees him from ego, greed, passion and purifies his heart, followed by attainment of knowledge. Lord Krishna says, for a man of self-knowledge, to him Brahman is offering. Brahman is an obligation, and it is a Brahman who offers the obligation in the fire of a Brahman. Brahman alone is attained by him who thus sees Brahman in actions. The divine knowledge cannot be described through limited power of words. It has to be learned, grasped and internalized through practice. We must realize that merely understanding divine message doesn't bring spirituality. It is the transformation of life that comes with making divine the way of life that brings spirituality.